Benjamin Franklin was walking out of Independence Hall after the Constitutional Convention in 1787 when someone shouted out, "Doctor, what have we got? A republic or a monarchy?" To which he replied, "A republic, if you can keep it." There's a lot of talk right now about whether we live in a republic or a democracy. But the answer isn't that simple. It's not one or the other, but rather a mixture of both. And that's by design. In the Federalist Papers number 9, titled "The Utility of the Nation as a Safeguard Against Domestic Faction and Insurrection," James Madison, our fourth president and the father of our Constitution, argues that a mixture of a republic and a democracy should be used to calm divisions and weed out unworthy candidates for office. Madison saw the Constitution as forming a happy combination of a republic and a democracy with, quote, "the great and aggregate interests being referred to the national, the local, and particular to the state legislators," end quote. The goal was to build a decentralized governmental structure. He wrote that it would make it, quote, "more difficult for unworthy candidates to practice the vicious arts by which elections are too often carried," end quote. Vicious arts like fear-mongering, race-baiting, and undermining our most sacred right and responsibility as Americans, the vote. Some of these vicious arts, as Madison puts it, have been used by our own president to lay the groundwork needed to call into question the results of an election that might not go his way. Repeatedly, our president has refused to answer simple and important questions like, will you respect the results of an election if you lose and ensure a peaceful transfer of power? Over and over again, his response has been, we'll see what happens, and the only way we're going to lose this election is if it's rigged. Remarks like these have even congressional and Senate Republicans coming out with statements to assure the American people there will, in fact, be a peaceful transition of power if Trump loses. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell tweeted in late September, writing, "The winner of the November 3rd election will be inaugurated on January 20th. There will be an orderly transition, just as there has been for every 4 years since 1792. Liz Cheney, a candidate for Congress in Wyoming and a daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney, also took to Twitter to remind us that we are a nation guided by the Constitution and not the whims of one individual or party. She wrote, "The peaceful transfer of power is enshrined in our Constitution and fundamental to the survival of our republic. America's leaders swear an oath to the Constitution. We will uphold that oath." But it's not just about refusing to acknowledge the results if he loses or to commit to a peaceful transfer of power if that's the case. Mr. Trump has been actively undermining how we Washingtonians and millions of other Americans routinely cast our ballots ahead of Election Day. He claims that there are massive amounts of fraud with mail-in ballots, claiming that up to 30 to 40% of ballots could be fraudulent.
A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame.
And he makes these claims while providing, like I said, no evidence whatsoever. According to a study and analysis conducted by the Washington Post of data collected from 3 vote-by-mail states with help from the nonprofit Electronic Registration Information Center, they found that officials identified just 372 possible cases of double voting or voting on behalf of deceased people out of about 14.6 million votes cast by mail in the 2016 and 2018 general elections, or 0.0025%. But we already know that vote by mail is safe and secure, right? We know this because many of us, including my very conservative grandparents, have been voting by mail since the 1980s. In fact, opt-in vote by mail was so popular and safe that in 2011, we went all in and changed our state's system entirely to vote by mail. Since then, have we seen a huge spike in voter fraud? Has it resulted in rigged elections? Has it usurped our ability to govern ourselves? Kim Wyman, our Secretary of State and a Republican, says no. During the 2018 election, Wyman said that Washington found that out of 3.2 million ballots cast, there were just 142 cases of voter fraud, where people had cast more than one ballot between different states or voted on behalf of a deceased family member. 142 votes is not nothing, but that's across the entire state. It's such a low percentage of ballots cast that it's not statistically possible for those votes to undermine our elections. Plus, there are repercussions for voter fraud. If you're caught, you could do jail time and lose your right to vote forever. Stay tuned, because after the break, we're going to take a look locally at this issue and talk with Chilean County Auditor Skip Moore about voting in our region. I'm Dominick Bonny, and this is Common Sense. These days, it can be hard to trust the media. What's true, what's fake, and who is behind the message? I'm a freelance journalist and videographer who has spent years studying the media. Now I'm taking a look at what local, regional, and national news stories mean to us here in North Central Washington. I'm Dominick Bonny, and this is Common Sense.
How do you know when it's time to go to Boswell's Furniture? When you know the look you love, the colors you want, but need a little design help to bring it all together. With Boswell's complimentary design service, Glenn, Buffy, and Teresa guide you until your vision becomes reality. More styles, more fabrics, and more choices of quality home furnishings fill Boswell's expansive 2-story showroom, so you can see it and feel it before you buy. Come into Boswell's and explore the endless possibilities of home furnishings. Boswell's on Easy Street. It's closer than you think.
So Pam, how's your mom doing?
She's okay. She's struggling. She'd like to stay in her house, and it's getting harder for her to do the daily chores.
What kinds of problems is she having?
Just basic house cleaning, taking care of her house, yard work, taking care of her medicine.
It does sound exhausting.
It is very exhausting, and I always worry about her.
Aging in Adult Care can assist you or your loved one to remain comfortably and safely in their own home. Contact them today to start the conversation.
So when it comes to the security of our vote-by-mail system on the most local of levels, are our elections safe? I headed over to the Chilean County Courthouse in Wenatchee and spoke with Chilean County Auditor Skip Moore about it. Here's what he had to say. Do you think that vote-by-mail is being politicized?
Oh, most definitely. And that's unfortunate. And we've always got that case, one side or the other, one group or another. Unfortunately, always there seems to be somebody doesn't want somebody else to participate. I don't understand that. My view on this is, obviously, I'm in the business of having people vote. I want everybody that has an opportunity to vote, to vote. I'm upset that we don't have 100% turnout for every election.
So please walk me through how ballots are collected and counted in Chilean County, and how do you and our system ensure the safety and security of our ballots?
Okay. Well, how they're collected in two ways. We can either receive the ballot back from the voter through the mail, in which case they put it through the standard process of they don't have to put an envelope, a stamp on the envelope. It's already prepaid. They drop it in their mailbox. It comes back to us via the Postal Service. The other opportunities would be to use our drop boxes. We have a drop box in each one of the cities in Chelan, Aniat, Wenatchee outside the library, up at Leavenworth by City Hall, as well as Cashmere by their City Hall. We have those drop boxes. They will be opened up coming this Wednesday and Thursday. Ballots will be going out in the mail this Wednesday. Those drop boxes are open 24/7, and they're locked in such a way for security purposes. We have seals on them and big old locks, as it were. So a person puts them in the drop box. They're basically handing the ballot from themselves to me or our office, because what we do is we send out teams of 2 persons. Whenever we move the ballots from a container into our office, it's always 2 people. Even when we're processing in the back, we have 2 people in the area with the ballots to avoid one person and a stack of ballots, or envelopes even. So if you place in the drop box, about every 2 to 3 days we'll be emptying the drop boxes. 2-person teams, everything's transported in bags and sealed. So that maintains the security when they're going through the drop box. The security level is a little bit different when it goes to the Postal Service, obviously, in that the voter is placing it in the mail stream, and then the postal carrier actually delivers to us here in the building. And once we receive it, we take it straight back into our ballot processing center, which is completely walled off and glassed off. I like to refer to it as the Fishbowl. And that is, anyone can stand outside and watch what's going on inside. The only way to get in there is via a key card, and so that way we control the access of who can be in there. And there again, it's two-person integrity at all times. Once we have live ballots in the ballot processing center, two people must be in there at a time, never one person alone with the ballots. Your ballot is maintained, its security and secrecy is kind of the envelope. In that once we receive your ballot back, the envelope that you send back to me is not opened until we have verified the signature that the voter's placed on there. So the voter signs it and they return it to us either through a drop box or through the mail. Once we receive it, we catalog it in. You'll notice when you get these, there's a barcode on there. And that barcode, we scan that barcode. That does two things for us. It lines up electronically the envelope in our system so that we can check the signatures. As well as at the same time, it notifies the registration system that you have in fact returned a ballot. And that prevents you from being able to mail back 53 of them. The first one back, credited to you as being returned, is the one that is held in the system. Once your signature is accepted and we're going to count your ballot, you're credited as returning a ballot, and then this ballot, this envelope, goes through a process where we have to take the ballot out. So we have a machine back there that's pretty trick, I think. The envelope slides through, and we set it up so we actually, the person running the machine doesn't even see the signature. They don't even know whose ballot this is. It slides through, it's sliced on two sides, and the machine actually pulls apart the envelope for us.
Tune in next time, because Mr. Moore will tell us how they process ballots and securely relay that information to the Secretary of State's office. Responsible public officials at every level are saying that vote by mail is safe, secure, and reliable. It might take a little longer to get that final count with mail-in balloting, but the final count is reliable, and instances of fraud are statistically insignificant.
Hey folks, Carrie from Blueberry Hills. A chill is in the air and it's a perfect time for some old-fashioned comfort food like our amazing Eggs Benedict, chicken fried steak, French dips, soups made from scratch, or fruit pies fresh from the oven. The crowds might be gone, but we're still here for you folks. So bring an appetite and a friend to Blueberry Hills in Manson, where you pick, you sit, you eat, and you visit. Open Wednesday through Sunday from 8 to 3. wildaboutberries.com.
Hi, I'm Jim Heinlein, independent agent at Springwater Insurance Group. And at Springwater, we really enjoy being independent, because what that means is that we become an educator and a teacher for Medicare plans, in fact, all plans. So if you have questions about perhaps changing your coverage, going to a new plan, at Springwater Insurance Group, we can teach you all your choices. And we give you the option, would you like to give us a call, maybe have a Zoom meeting? Whatever way works best for you, give us a call at Springwater Insurance Group.
For now, though, let's move on to the next big question we're asking in this episode. Why has COVID-19 impacted North Central Washington's LatinX population at such high rates compared to the Caucasian population? It's an issue that's so pronounced that a team of epidemiologists from the Center for Disease Control was sent to our region to study it recently, and their findings were interesting, to say the least. The team was here for about a month, and according to coverage by the Wenatchee World, federal officials said the response to the pandemic in Chilean and Douglas counties has been hampered by a lack of trust and communication with the area's most vulnerable populations. The team conducted 6 focus groups and gathered feedback from people about how they felt leaders had dealt with the pandemic. Hannah Lofgren, a community mitigation specialist and member of the CDC team, said in early October that, quote, many groups expressed a lack of trust. Occasionally, it was a medical system, more often political leaders and other factors as well, end quote. I found the world's coverage on this to be quality reporting, but it's something that didn't get the attention it deserves. So I called up a fellow Rotarian and friend at Confluence Health, Dr. Mabel Bodell, and asked her if she'd share her thoughts. Dr. Bodell is a nephrologist, and you might recognize her from her extensive outreach she's been doing to try and reach the LatinX community using Spanish-language social media posts. I met up with her outside Central Washington Hospital recently and asked her why COVID is disproportionately impacting members of the Latinx community in our region. Here's what she had to say.
There is nothing about genetics that really make us Latinx more, risky to have the COVID-19. It's everything related to what we call social determinants of health. My name is Mabel Bodell. I'm a physician at Confluence Health. I'm a kidney doctor, a nephrologist, and I'm also the co-chair of the HEDI Council, which is Health, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion.
The biggest question is, why has COVID been affecting our Latinx population disproportionately?
As you know, the Latinx community, we account for approximately 30% of the Chilean and Douglas counties. But unfortunately, Latinx, we are 80% of the positive cases here in our valley. Of all of these patients, the ones that are admitted to the hospital, also more than 50% are Latinx. And we got these questions all the time. Why our Latinx community is so affected? Well, first of all, our Latinx community here, so most of them, they really work in what we call essential works. So meaning that they are agricultural workers, so they work in grocery stores. They're really kind of the first line in terms of contact with people. Also, the way that they live, they usually, for example, the agricultural workers, they conglomerate in housing, which have an increased exposure to somebody who, again, could be positive. Also, the Latinx community members, they live in multi-generational housing. It means that they have multiple generations maybe in the same house, which also increases the risk of exposure.
Have communication efforts to let the Latinx community know important information been appropriate?
So from the very beginning, we have many grassroots efforts that are trying to bridge the gap between the health system and the Latinx community. We recognize that we still have a lot of work to do. So there is a lot of local efforts, and actually I wanted to praise some of the grassroots efforts because have been amazing in how to really connect our community. But we know very well that is still a lot of lack of trust in the medical system, a lot of misinformation out there, so we need to still be working even harder to try to bridge these gaps. So we keep working, we keep really not only translating information into the Spanish language, but also we need to be sure that this information is actually culturally focused. So it means that it's not the same translating something from English to Spanish. It needs to be really appropriate for our community to really reach the people that you wanted to reach. And then, of course, we are using a lot of media outlets to try to get the information out there. So we know that we have even more efforts that we need to continue to work with our community. But social media has been a little bit like positive, but also negative. It's so much misinformation out there in social media. So we still need to work together with our community, with really all the health systems locally to really bridge these gaps.
Do you have any advice for people to get the right information? How can they battle the misinformation and find the good information?
So first of all, please look at the source, where this information is coming from. So as many people pointed out, just even me having a white coat and a stethoscope doesn't make me an expert on what I'm saying. But I do have the backup of the health system that I'm representing. I also look for information that are really reliable sources. So the CDC, the Center of Disease Control, so the American Society of Infectious Disease. So all I said before, look at the source of the information. Look at for somebody that you could trust. So just be careful, and much more the information that is out there in social media, you have to really look what that information is coming from. So just be careful, please, and feel free to reach us. So again, you do have a provider, we do have a medical system locally. If you have any questions, any concerns, please do not hesitate to contact us. We can really help.
How about, political and church leaders? Well, I'll start with church leaders. Church and cultural leaders, how do they come in, and what's the role that they have played and need to play?
In terms of the church leaders, we know very well that really working on following all the guidelines placed by the federal institution like the CDC. But beyond that, we need also their help to keep communicating and stressing the need of really continue to do the basic measure that is going to really help all of us, our community. So the use of masks, so the hand washing, so the social distancing, that needs to be even more spread out by our leaders. And of course, churches in our Latinx community, they are very important. So they really look up to them for guidance. In terms of our political leaders locally in our community, we have to stop politicizing this issue. It's nothing about politics, it's about our community. So it's about, again, my family, your family. So we have to really forget about all this. Please, we need to work together on get this pandemic under control.
What does our community need to know going forward?
Well, first of all, if you look at our census, which is available in the Confluence Health webpage, you can actually look how many patients we have admitted currently at Central Washington Hospital. Fortunately, our census dropped a lot, and we only have a handful of patients over the last couple of days, 2-3 admitted with COVID-19. Now, more than ever, we are preparing for the fall and winter times. So the first and most important thing is actually getting your flu vaccine. So we will not know if you have, for example, fever and some respiratory symptoms, if you have maybe COVID or the flu. So definitely the first thing that you can do right now is getting your flu vaccine. And we do have free clinics that we're going to try to work even more with our Latinx community to be sure that the most vulnerable people in our community get vaccinated. Again, our Latinx community. So we are really working hard on making sure that we do have free clinics for free flu shots for everybody in our community. Then we have to continue with the basic measures about prevention, because that's going to be our best tool to really fight this pandemic. So meaning that, again, mask wearing, hand washing, social distancing, all these things that will continue to be in place. And in terms of the COVID vaccine, Confluence Health has been very lucky to participate in one of the COVID-19 vaccine trials. So it's one of the Pfizer trials. So despite the fact we are making advances in terms of recruiting, not only locally, but also nationwide and worldwide, we still have a lot of steps to go through, meaning that we are really happy that things are moving very fast, but it's going to be very unlikely that we're going to have a vaccine available for everybody anytime soon. So again, we need to continue to work on the measures that we know that they work, and stop saying that mask doesn't work. Please stop. It's almost like 800 studies now published that a mask will protect you and will protect me against the virus. So please, mask up and wash your hands and continue with social distancing.
Yeah, my last question is always, is there anything we didn't cover here today that you think the public should know?
Please, we need to work together. There are so many grassroots efforts in our community. We have to get this pandemic under control, and we still have time to do it. As I said before, our census right now have dropped. So now, more than ever, we have to work together to be prepared for the next few months. COVID-19 is going to be with us for quite some time. Please, work together, work with me, so try to get this under control. And thank you.
With PUD rebates, we'll give you money to upgrade your house and reduce your energy footprint.
The rebates are real. Visit conservationmakessense.org to learn more.
Businesses and individuals have trusted the experienced professionals at Financial Alternatives for their retirement and investment needs for 40 years. They offer a broad range of investments, annuities, and insurance solutions for people and businesses throughout Washington. Financial Alternatives will assist you in making informed decisions for your future. Call Financial Alternatives today and meet with their advisors.
Mary Maids of Wenatchee has been professionally cleaning and sanitizing homes and businesses in North Central Washington since 1998. Mary Maids uses commercial-grade cleaners and viricides. Mary Maids has implemented additional safety and sanitation protocols. They are strictly following CDC guidelines for the safety of their clients and employees. For expert help with cleaning and sanitizing your home or business, call or look up Mary Maids of Wenatchee to schedule your free estimate today.
You may ask yourself, what does vote by mail and COVID-19 have to do with each other? Why put them together in the same episode? The answer is simple. They have both been needlessly politicized. Because politics has been injected into these topics, the problems we are facing because of that decision has been multiplied. If our federal leaders and more state and especially local political leaders would have responded to the pandemic as the public health crisis it clearly is, we would all be better off right now. Rather than dismissing COVID as a hoax, minimizing its dangers and casting doubt on common sense mitigation efforts like wearing masks, at every level people wasted valuable time. And in the end, it's us, the American people, who pay the price, specifically the poor and those in the margins of our society. Perhaps I'll keep pulling at this thread and following up with additional reporting in future episodes. When it comes to vote by mail, we've turned something that hasn't been controversial into one of the biggest battlegrounds in American politics. And it's a rhetorical fight that has the potential to spill out onto the streets of some states on election day and result in voter intimidation and even violence. Do I have a solution? I wish I did. What I do have, though, is research, logic, and historical context, and that's what I want to leave you with today. The last thing I want to talk about is the concept of the big lie, which is a term coined by Adolf Hitler and championed by his propaganda minister, Joseph Goebbels. The idea behind it is the more far-fetched your claim, the taller your tale, the better. But the key is that you must keep repeating that lie because it's the repetition that makes the whole con work. Goebbels is attributed with saying, quote, "If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. The lie can only be maintained for such a time as the state can shield the people from the political, economic, and/or military consequences of the lie. It thus becomes vitally important for the state to use all its powers to repress dissent. For the truth is the mortal enemy of the lie, and thus by extension, the truth is the greatest enemy of the state." End quote. The phrase can also be traced back to a World War II report by the Office of Strategic Services in which they laid out Hitler's psychological profile, writing, quote, "His primary rules were never allow the public to cool off, never admit a fault or wrong, never concede that there may be some good in your enemy, never leave room for alternatives, never accept blame. Concentrate on one enemy at a time and blame him for everything that goes wrong. People will believe a big lie sooner than a little one, and if you repeat it frequently enough, people will sooner or later believe it." End quote. Doesn't that behavior sound familiar? The last thought I'll leave you with is a quote by my favorite author, Mark Twain, who said, "History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes." Join us next time.
I'm Sean Smith, and you're watching the NCWLIFE channel.